I had a friend of mine that actually went to China for a couple of years, and she took some photographs here. And this is what China looks like. They have a very strong presence militarily. You can see the guys marching around in their uniforms all the time, but their own duty. It's not like they're off duty in their uniforms; their own duty in their uniforms. Another friend of mine, but it's very touristy. You can see that they taking a picture in the Forbidden City. They dress, kind of like we do. They have headbands and glasses and whatever else. And the big thing they promoted, this was back in 2007, they were like, ooh, the Olympics are coming up. And if you saw the Olympics in 2008, they're pretty phenomenal because China did a very good job of them. When you go to China, you can just go and be a tourist and everything's okay. But if you start doing things that are kind of against the Chinese beliefs, if you start trying to go there as a missionary or try to spread Christianity, if you go there to try to incite government changes, they'll start having these followers, these watchers that will follow you in China. Another friend of mine went to Hong Kong, and he went there as a missionary, and he said after a while this guy started following me. I could see him like over about a football field away, but he was following me everywhere I went. But as you can see, here's Shanghai. It's a huge city. It's one of the world's largest cities. It's the largest city in China. Over 20 million people live there. But you can see, look, they have a Pizza Hut. That's right. There's a Pizza Hut in China. So it's a lot like America in the fact that you can get a lot of things that you could get in America. It's home to the world's largest KFC. There's the Colonel right there, huh? Next to China is Taiwan, this little island right here. The capital city is Taipei. It's home to the Taipei 1 or Taipei 101. It's this large skyscraper there. We call it semi-independent because it claims to be independent from China, even though China claims to own it. And Taiwan is known for known for its Little League Baseball. The very good Little League Baseball teams come out of Taiwan. Hong Kong was originally a British territory. It was home to a lot of smugglers and pirates. In 1997, though, Hong Kong handed China back over to the Chinese. It is an autonomous region, though, so they have a little bit of leeway and a little bit of freedom that's not allowed in the regular parts of China. They have a lot of banks. The Stock Exchange of Asia, one of the big stock exchanges in Asia, is located in Hong Kong, and a lot of businesses set up in Hong Kong because they're allowed some liberties that aren't allowed in other parts of China. Mongolia is a massive country, but it's very sparsely populated. Actually, one of the most sparsely populated countries in the world. It's very dry, it's very poor. There's a large Chinese investment that's going on in Mongolia. And a lot of the people in Mongolia trace their heritage or their lineage back to Genghis Khan of the Golden Horde of the Tartars. North Korea is very mountainous, it's very dry. It's very, very, very poor because the country has spent all of its money on building its military and creating fear for the people of North Korea. It is allegedly a nuclear threat. It actually, the way that North Korea and South Korea were formed was after World War II, because Japan had ruled Korea during World War II. Well, after World War II was over, Korea's like, well, who will rule us now? And North Korea had this communist guy named Kim Il-sung, who was its leader, and South Korea had a less communist leader who was its ruler, a dictator actually. And they fought this war in the 1950s. And the United States got involved in it, and China got involved in it, and eventually they came to a peace agreement. The war technically isn't over, even though they're not really fighting anymore. And so you have North Korea, which is communist and has become this hermit state where he's isolated. Kim Jong-il was the leader up until last year, who isolated the people from the rest of the world. And the southern part, or the southern South Korea, is completely different from North Korea. They're now democratic, a lot of freedoms, very big businesses. It's a lot like the United States. but North Korea is still very communist. And after Kim Jong Il died, his son Kim Jong Un is now the leader of North Korea. The funny thing is, though, is that Kim Jong Un went to school in Switzerland. He's a huge fan of Michael Jordan. His dad, Kim Jong Il, here owned American sports cars and loved American action movies. But he wouldn't allow the rest of his Korean people to see them. It's very intriguing. South Korea is the polar opposite of North Korea. Great economy, great cropland, very democratic. Cars like the Kia, it's got the hamsters, dancing in it. Those are made in South Korea. It's growing in Christianity. It's a very strong Christian growth. Also, if you haven't seen the video for the new pop sensation Psy, Psy, he dances Gangnam Style, and that's he's Korean, he's South Korean, and that's a huge thing right now to do, is to do the Gangnam Style dance. It's very funny. We also have Japan. Japan has 4 main islands. They are volcanic. It's in need of natural resources because there's a lot of people on a little bit of land. So they're always in need of natural resources. Mount Fuji there, beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. It's an inactive volcano. Japan does suffer from typhoons and earthquakes. They eat a lot of fish in Japan because they're islands. And if you're islands and you're limited in your land, what do? You farm. So that's exactly what they farm. They farm fish. Sorry, they can't farm because they're lacking in land, so they fish. It is a nation state. That means that everyone, basically 99% of the people who live in Japan, are Japanese. They speak Japanese. They believe in the way that Japanese believe. And all the people who are Japanese live in Japan. And for the most part, that is true. They are of a Shinto religion. And Shinto religion is a mix of Buddhism along with believing that their emperor is a divine being. And they believe in ancestor worship, too. They light candles and have their little photographs of their ancestors. They dislike Koreans, which goes back to the whole belief that Koreans believe they're the first Asians. Japanese believe that too. Most of the things in Japan are very small. The houses are small, the cars are small, the hotel rooms are small, but the Japanese make very high quality products, and they pride themselves on their high quality products. There's always a need for more land in Japan. The Japanese also, because of their need for high-quality products and making things that bring honor upon their family, they sometimes are under a lot of stress. They have a lot of depression, and depression leads to alcoholism. But the Japanese are also known as great baseball players, and yes, they do have people who participate in sumo, even still today. It is still a traditional Japanese sport. In the 1920s and 1930s, the Japanese rose to prominence, and they helped start World War II. They did attack Pearl Harbor in the United States. But after World War II, the Americans started reinvesting in Japan, helping the Japanese to become the powerhouse they are today. And yes, the Japanese created the Wii and the PlayStation. In the 1990s, the Japanese had this technology bubble, this growth in the economy that just grew and grew and grew, but eventually it popped. They made so much stuff and all this investment, and it eventually panned out that the Japanese had made all the money they could in technology and invested too much stuff, and the economy crashed in the 1990s. But now the economy's coming back, and it's doing pretty good in Japan. There's Tokyo. It's another one of the world's largest cities. It could be the world's largest city. Depends on how you measure it. And they love their neon in Tokyo. They absolutely love neon everywhere. One of the problems with Tokyo and with Japan is that you have all these different plates, tectonic plates that meet right there in Japan. And that causes some problems because when you have lots of tectonic plates, you get lots of earthquakes. And Japan suffers from lots of earthquakes. So they have problems because of that. But they build their buildings so they're earthquake resistant. The Japanese are very technically advanced. They know their stuff very well. And so that's that's Japan, and that's East Asia.